Your EV will crash in value to next to nothing. You're going to lose all your money. Who would even buy a 2-year-old EV needing a new battery? And it might catch fire. There's so much people get wrong, it's difficult to know where to start. But let's, in this video, tackle depreciation. I'm Dave, this is Dave Takes It On. Okay, well, the first thing we're going to do is see who depreciation actually affects. Because there's an awful lot of you out there worried about depreciation, have no need to. Leasing is a classic example. Don't know if people realise this, but leasing is a legal document between the company that owns the vehicle, and it's not the manufacturer, it's a leasing company, they own the vehicle, and they rent it to you or lease it to you. And you sign an agreement which is for a set period of time and a set maximum number of miles. That's it. So you might have a 3-year lease and it says you can do 8,000 miles a year. That's it. So you pay your deposit. It's usually nothing, or 3 months or 6 months or 9 months of the first payments. And then you pay it for the duration of the lease. At the end of the lease, you hand the car back. Now, they will check it over, make sure there's no damage to it, but assuming it's been looked after and there's no real damage, they take it back and the legal contract ends. It makes not a jot of difference whether the car you hand back is worth £1 or £100,000. With a lease, you have a set period of time. You get your car, you drive it, you hand it back. It makes no difference what the final value of that car is. Now, the amount of depreciation will change the amount you have to pay each month. If a car is going to depreciate steeply, then you will pay more because the car will be worth less to the leasing company when the lease ends. So when they sell it on as a used car, they will get less for it. But you know this before you start the lease because you'll get a monthly payment. So let's take an example. Someone says you can have a Tesla Model 3. It is 9 months in advance and your monthly payment is 250 quid. You've got 8,000 miles a year mileage limitation. So that's it. It's as simple as that. Now, if the day you get it, the price of your car crashes to half price, let's say Elon brings out a new Model 2, which is £5,000, and everyone buys that and nobody buys the Model 3 anymore, it's not your problem. Because you will have that car, you will pay your £250 a month. If you stay within the limit and you don't damage the car, you will hand it back. It might be worth £1. Doesn't matter. It's the leasing company's issue. It's their problem, not yours. So for anyone leasing, depreciation is absolutely a non-starter. Don't even think about it. It makes no difference to you whatsoever. How about people like me? I've decided to buy my car and I'm going to keep it. My last car, I did that. I had a Citroën C4 Picasso. I bought it. It was a couple of years old, very low mileage, and I kept it until it fell apart. I did very high mileage back then, and literally the car had so many things wrong with it at the end of it that the bill to put it back on the road in a safe and drivable condition was worth about 3 or 4 times what the car was worth. It had a best part of 200,000 miles on the clock, needed a clutch, needed a head gasket, needed, the list was endless. And in all honesty, how much is that car worth? This was now something like a 7 or 8 year old car. It had 200,000 miles on it, and it had a £5,000 or £6,000 repair bill just to keep it back on the road. How much would you pay for that car? Yeah, that was the problem I found. Nobody would, right? So if I run my car until it reaches the end of its life and it fails, that car went off to the scrapyard. I got a nominal amount of money for it. Depreciation is meaningless. It has no value to me. While I was driving that car, it made no difference how much it was worth. Whether it had gone up in value or down in value as a used car made no difference whatsoever, because I was planning to drive that car until it failed. And when it failed, it would fail in a big way and it would go to the scrapyard. Now, just to put some figures on it, why did I do it? It cost me £14,000 to buy it. I kept it for almost 6 years, 5 or 6 years, something like that. At the end of it, I got nothing for it, a few £100. So over the life of the time I had it, say 6 years, I lost £14,000. That's about, what, £2,500 a year, something in that region. That was my effectively deep depreciation, but it didn't worry me because I was going to run that car until it failed. Had it failed a year earlier or a year later, the figures would have been different. So the car I've got at the moment, it is one that I intend or intended to keep as my car until it failed. It's going really well at the moment. It's about 90,000 miles. It's 8 years old now, coming up 8.5, 9 years. Driving really well. Had so little wrong with it. It's unbelievable. And I also had a 4-year warranty with it. So a lot of the things that did go wrong, the silly little things, door handles, suspension bush, the boot, clench, latch, a couple of other little things, they were all carried out under warranty. The only thing I've done in terms of servicing or repairs or maintenance is replace the tyres, replace the windscreen wipers, and had the air conditioning topped up. That wasn't covered by warranty because it fell outside the warranty. So I've had a nominal time with it. I haven't spent an awful lot of money. I suspect as I keep it longer, it will cost me more, but it's a great car. It's aluminium body. I've got no rust. The chassis underneath is really good. The engine's good. The motor, the battery's still good. I don't have major depreciation. Still got most of its range. I've lost very little. So I'm going to get niggly little things happening from now. It'll be steering bushes, suspension bushes, door latches, headlights, things like that, which affect every single car. So to me, what my car is worth today is absolutely irrelevant. I don't care whether it's halved in value or doubled in value. I'm not selling it. And next year, I won't be caring what it's worth. Is it doubled or is it halved? I won't be selling it. I'm planning on keeping that. I might change my mind if and when the Model 2 comes out, but that's going to be at least 2 or 3 years in the future. In the meantime, what my car's worth is totally irrelevant. So for me, depreciation, it doesn't enter into the equation. And you'll find with all cars, whether it's petrol, diesel, hybrids or electric, they get down to a certain price and then they never go below that, assuming they're still driving. So with petrol cars, that actually comes out about 500, 600, 700 quid. So for me, if I want to keep my car until it falls apart, depreciation is absolutely meaningless. So the people who get hurt by depreciation are those who regularly buy a new car or a new used car and then repeat it. So they'll buy a car every 2 years, whether it's a brand new one and replace it with a new one every 2 years, or whether it's a used one and replace that one every 2 years. Those are the people who will be affected by depreciation. And that is a much smaller market than most people think. But even for them, it's not even. Anyone who buys a new car is going to suffer massive depreciation the second they drive off a forecourt. This goes for petrol, diesel, hybrids, electric vehicles, the lot. And the reason for that is fairly logical. If your car is £40,000, for example, you can go into the showroom, you can buy a new car for £40,000. If you drive it off the forecourt, it suddenly becomes a used car, and no one in the right mind will pay £40,000 for a used car. It's got to be less. So the garage won't want to buy it back from you at £40,000 because nobody will make any money. So they are going to knock off probably the best part of 5 or 10 grand, even if you've only driven 100 yards, because it is now a second-hand car. It is worth less. So that's your big hit. If you buy a 10-year-old car every 2 years, throw it away, buy another one. That's very different because at 10 years old, depreciation is relatively small. Depreciation is a sort of downward exponential curve. The value of it tends to taper off as the car gets older, and some of them just keep on having a value forever. So we're down into a very small market now. That small market is people who buy brand new cars every 2, 3 or 4 years and replace them with a brand new one every 2, 3 or 4 years. So for them, depreciation's a worry. However, is it a worry? And the reason I say that is because everything else you buy in your life also goes through that. Your mobile phone, right? You buy it, you buy the latest iPhone 16, whatever number they're on now. If you try and sell that the next day, it's worth less. If you try and sell it next year when the next model comes out, it's worth an awful lot less. Why is it that we don't look at depreciation of things like mobile phones, tablets, TVs, but we do when it comes to cars? One thing, obviously, it's a higher value, and so you stand to lose more money, but we just live with depreciation. So that is my take on depreciation. So it worries a very small number of people, but it does worry some. I need a special mention, so big thank you to all our Patreon members for supporting this channel. Big shout out to Darren, he's our first top tier member. Thank you, Darren. Members get access to videos that we don't normally show on YouTube, and that includes things like behind the scenes shooting and bloopers. Yeah, I do make mistakes, and those Jonas is very keen on getting his hands on when he puts these videos together, so you can see those. We also have an active chat room so people can contact me directly and ask specific questions, and they will get a personal answer back from me. So for more details, if you want to become a member, please check in the description below. Now I'm going to make a bit of a diversion. We're going to talk about designer handbags. Haha, yeah, that's got you. Okay, what's designer handbags got to do with it? Well, recently I was charging at a retail park, and that retail park had what they call designer outlets. I'm not a fashion guru. To me, yeah, fashion's long since passed me by. But my wife still is. She likes to have nice things, and particularly handbags. And she would like to have a designer handbag. So last time we were out, we were charging at one of these designer outlets, and we had a wander around the shops. And if I could just tell you, the headline is designer handbags, Ralph Fred Johnson. I've got no idea what the names are, but whoever it is, 80% off today only. And I'm thinking, hang on a minute, and I looked at the handbag that my wife was looking at, and it was like 100 quid. And I'm thinking, 80% off, that means that's worth, no, not worth, that's list price is heading up towards £1,000. So why are they selling it for 100 quid? And that, to me, doesn't make any sense. That is massive depreciation. It's worth the best part of £1,000. Go to this shop today, you can get it for 100 quid. Wow, that's a bargain. That's not. Oh my goodness, look at the depreciation on it. I don't want it. It is, my goodness, look at the price drop. I'll have it. So we have a very different attitude. And that brings me really to pricing. That particular handbag, what is the price of it? The shop is trying to tell us that the full price of it is best part of 1,000 quid. Has anyone ever sold one of those at 1,000 quid? I guarantee they haven't. So why do they tell us it's 1,000 quid and it's 80% off today? Well, they do that to try and incentivize us to go and buy it. It's a sales attraction. Oh, I can get a bargain here. Yet if you see a second-hand car that's crashed in value, £10,000 in the first year, oh, not touching that, that's depreciated. It's a weird attitude that we have to this. So did my wife feel cheated that if I had bought her the handbag, that it would have been bought only because it was really cheap, and she's got a handbag that's worth only 10-12% of what the proper one should be? Well, of course not. It's the same handbag. To her, she's got a handbag. That's it. And the price you paid is a little bit irrelevant. And whether it was actually worth £1,000 or not, it's a very different subject. So what is important here is when we talk about depreciation, depreciation from what? So what we're going to do now, we're going to have a look at the price of cars. And the first thing I have to say is a manufacturer's recommended selling price is just an absolute joke. It's just a figure that someone plucks out of the air. This car list price is X. You know, if you go into a showroom with cash, you're going to get a discount. You know, if you trade in, they're going to offer you money for your trade in. It's just a made-up figure. It's a fictional figure. But what you have to look at when you're looking at depreciation, so a lot of people tell me EVs depreciate very heavily. I'm going to give you some examples now. These are actual examples to show if you start with the correct manufacturer's recommended selling price, EVs do not depreciate any differently to any other car. Okay, let me just give you an example then. Because I'm a Tesla man, I'm going to take a Tesla 3. So Tesla had what I call correct pricing. Now the Tesla Model 3 when it launched was about £37,000. Today it's about £39,000. So it stayed pretty much the same over the last 5 or 6 years. And when you look at the Tesla Model 3, it's quite well spec'd. It's quite a high performance car. So when we compare it to other cars that you could choose instead of an EV, a Tesla EV, let's compare it to something like a BMW 3 Series. Now the Model 3 is bigger than the BMW 3 Series, but let's compare it to the 3 Series. We'll compare it also to the Mercedes C-Class. This is the budget end of the Mercedes market, not down in the A's, but C. Or something like the Audi A4. And when we look at these prices, your Tesla Model 3, £39,000. The BMW 3 Series, just checked today, list price £42,000. I've looked at the C-Class Mercedes. That's also £42,000. And I've looked at the Audi A4, and that's £41,000. So what that tells me as a buyer, if I hadn't got an EV at this stage, that I can choose within a budget of about £40,000 whether to have a Tesla Model 3 or a Mercedes or a BMW or an Audi. They're all on a price parity. There is no, the Tesla Model 3 is £80,000 and the others are £40,000. There's none of that. All these cars are pretty much the same. So if you had £40,000 budget to spend on a premium performance car, I could go into a Tesla, BMW, Mercedes or Audi dealer and I could get a car, and all of those would be in some way fairly comparable. There's no glaring outliers. So when we have a look at what they are selling for, we find out that the Tesla Model 3 is priced roughly where it should be. That's priced correctly. And that would explain why it was so popular, because someone who had a £40,000 budget to buy a Mercedes, Audi or BMW could be tempted, if they liked EVs, to buy a Tesla. So it was in the right market. When we look at Stellantis, I've quoted this one before, take a Fiat 500. We've got a Fiat 500 with a petrol engine and they have a Fiat 500 with a battery. Now, the ICE version, the petrol version, is £16,800, list price brand new. The EV version is £22,000. Brand new. This is list price, and I'm not saying anyone pays this, but this is list price, which is all we can go at. So you've got just under 17,000 against 22,000. That's about a 30% premium. So that Fiat 500e is not, in my opinion, priced correctly, because if someone wants a Fiat 500e, it should be at about the same price as the ICE one, or if they do a hybrid, it should be about the same price as the hybrid one. So you have to put your price correctly for the market that you're selling into. And this is the reason why the Fiat factory is shutting down at the moment, because there will always be people who want a prestige car. They see it as a prestige car or a designer car. This applies to smart cars, applies to minis, applies to Fiat 500. They've got a little niche of their own, and people are prepared to pay more. But not your average person. If your average person has a budget between 15 and 20,000, he can't buy the EV version of a Fiat 500. It's out of his budget. So that one, in my opinion, is priced incorrectly. That is the reason it hasn't sold in any numbers sufficient to keep the factory open. And that is why they're going to have to do something really serious about the price. We could look at another example. This is a Citroën EC3 against the Citroën C3 Ice. And once again, the ICE car is proudly offered on sale for £17,800. The EV version, which I believe is the same body, looks exactly the same sort of style and everything else, is £22,000. So once again, we're on a 30% hike in price. If you've got £22,000, you were buying a petrol car, you wouldn't look at a Citroën C3. You'd be looking at the C4, which is still under £20,000, or a C5, which is in the mid-20s. So the C3 ICE car is in its correct price bracket. It's in the budget range between 15,000 and 20,000. The Citroën E C3 should also be below 20,000. Then it would have a chance. Take one last example, then we're going to look on used values, and that will shock you. Going to have a quick look at Mercedes. They have a GLA, and the GLA has an EV equivalent, which is the EQA. So these are the same body, same style, same seats, same pretty much everything, suspension, the lot. Just one's powered by a hybrid engine, the other one's powered by an EV. The Mercedes GLA is 35,000. The EQA is 42,000. And again, that's about a 22% price hike. Same car, effectively. Don't get any more room, don't get any more boot space, don't get any more, very much. Get much shorter range because the EQA is not that efficient. But you're being asked to pay a hike in price just because we've put batteries and electric motor in it. To me, that car is priced wrong. So what we're going to do now, just do it very quickly, the Fiat 500e, let's have a look at an ICE version of this, 2 years old. So this is now, if you look in Auto Trader, and again, I can only go on list prices, what they fetch, I don't know, but this is list price. When you look at a 2-year-old Fiat 500 petrol car, they are selling for round about £12,000. So this is 2 years old, selling for £12,000. So that gives a loss of about 20–25% on the new price. If you look at the Fiat 500e, which is the electric version of it and a 2022 model, it's selling for about £17,000. But that is also a 22% loss on the new price. So it is, in effect, price parity. They lose the same amount of money, the same percentage, but because the Fiat 500e was very much dearer to start with, it's very much dearer as a second-hand one. But the depreciation is not significantly more than the ICE one. So let's have a look at the BMW 3 Series, and this is a 2-litre model, 2022, and you look through it, there's loads of different models, some of them way more expensive than others, but they seem to be round about the 26–27,000 mark for a 2-year-old BMW 3 Series 2-litre basic model, good condition. If we look at its competitor, which I used earlier on, the Tesla Model 3 2022, they're on Auto Trader as well, and they're priced round about 28,000. So the BMW 3 Series and the Tesla Model 3 both depreciate pretty much exactly the same amount, down to the same figure within 1,000 or two. Let's have a look at the Mercedes, the C-Class
Can we do it with that? A 2022 Mercedes C-Class, we're not talking about the ultra-luxury performance, the AMG ones, we're talking about just a basic 2-litre model. They're on Auto Trader around about £30,000. And the EQA on Auto Trader is about £28,000. And this one's really quite interesting because there is a price parity in what a 2022 GLA or EQA will sell for. But there was a big difference in what you had to pay for them brand new. In other words, the EQA was seriously overpriced, so anyone who bought one of them would have spent a lot more money and have a car worth the same as if they'd bought the GLA, the petrol, the hybrid version, and that depreciated over 2 years. So that confirms my statement I always make, is that these legacy auto cars are seriously overpriced, and it's that is stopping them from selling. So, before you say it, Tesla sell their cars at the correct price, as do people like BYD, MG, Xiaomi. They all sell at a price which is comparable with competitors in the market, which are petrol hybrids or plug-in hybrids. They do not have massive markup on the price. So most of these proper EVs, I call them, they are sold at the correct price, comparable with the ICE versions, and they are selling really well. Legacy Autos seems to think, well, we can just put a 25, 30, 50% price loading on the new one and people will still buy them. So their EVs, the Legacy Auto, were overpriced and they lost more than had you bought an ICE car, but they dropped to roughly the same value or getting closer. So in conclusion, not all EVs are overpriced. All used EVs tend to be round about price parity with their ICE versions. And so it all balances out in the long run. If you choose to go into a Mercedes or a BMW dealership and pay £5,000, £10,000, £15,000 more for an EV from them than the equivalent in the showroom of an ICE or a hybrid version, then you must know that you're going to lose that premium when you come to sell it second hand, because the prices balance out. Depreciation is not such a big issue as people seem to think. It does not affect anywhere near as many people as many people seem to think. And it really comes down to, if the car that you're buying is overpriced to start with, it will depreciate more than if it's correctly priced at the beginning. So that's it. I'm Dave. Hope this has been of help to you. Hope it's been interesting. If you have liked it, please click the like button. If you'd like to see more like this, please click subscribe. Makes a big difference to a channel like ours. It tells YouTube that people are wanting to see more of the videos, so they put our video out to more and more people, which helps the channel grow. So thanks very much for watching. I'm Dave.